My brother raised his glass at the head of my parents' dining table, cleared his throat and said, "To my sister, the hero who's literally saving my life." And for a full 3 seconds I honestly thought he was joking, right up until my mother burst into loud, ugly crying and my father's hand landed on my shoulder like a congratulatory lead weight, and I realized I was apparently the only person in the room who didn't know I had just agreed to donate a kidney. "Wait, what?" I said, my fork halfway to my mouth, mashed potatoes freezing in midair. 20 eyes swung toward me. We had the whole clan there that night, my parents, my brother Matt and his girlfriend, my husband, our 2 kids, my aunt and uncle, even my grandmother in her wheelchair, watching like a sitcom audience that had wandered onto the wrong set. "Don't be modest," my mother sobbed, dabbing at her face with a napkin. "This is who you are, Amanda, always sacrificing, always putting others first. When the doctor said you were a match, I knew God wasn't done with our family yet." "You what?" I repeated, my voice coming out thin and high. I looked at Matt. He had that smug, wounded little boy expression I knew too well, the one he used to wear when he'd accidentally break my stuff, and then let Mom comfort him because he didn't mean it. "Come on, Mandy," he said, tipping his head like we were sharing a private joke. "Don't make it weird. We all know you said you'd think about it. Well, you thought about it. You got tested. You're a match. This is happening." He clinked his glass against mine before I could pull it away. Liquid sloshed onto the tablecloth. "To my favorite kidney," he grinned. My husband, Eric, smiled uncertainly, searching my face like maybe this was some elaborate surprise he'd missed the memo on. "You got the results?" he asked me quietly. "You didn't tell me they were positive." "Because I just got the call yesterday," I hissed back. "And I have not agreed to anything." My mother's head snapped toward me so fast I heard her neck crack. "What do you mean you haven't agreed?" she demanded, tears cut off like a faucet. "You told the doctor you were willing to be evaluated." "Evaluated?" I echoed. "As in, we will run tests and then we will talk about it, no pressure, completely voluntary." That's what the transplant coordinator said. Remember? She used those exact words. "Of course it's voluntary," Dad rumbled, squeezing my shoulder. "Nobody's holding a gun to your head. We just wanted to celebrate that there's hope now. Your brother's been given a second chance." "With my organs," I said. "My organs are not a party theme." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked at my kids who were watching all of this with wide eyes. Jake, 15, trying to look cool and failing, Lily, 11, clutching her water glass with both hands. "Can I talk to you in the kitchen?" I said to Matt, keeping my voice low. "Now. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of our family," he announced, performing for his audience. "They've been here through everything. They deserve to share this moment." "What moment?" I snapped. "The moment you decided my body was community property?" Aunt Carol reached over and patted my hand. "Sweetheart, I know it's scary," she cooed. "But think how you'll feel, knowing you kept your baby brother on this earth for his kids. You're a mom. You get it." "I do get it," I said, staring at her. "Which is why I also get that my kids might want their mom to keep both her kidneys. Call me selfish." "Selfish," my mother repeated like the word itself proved a point. "Do you hear her? After everything Matt's been through." "Everything Matt's been through," I echoed. "You mean the years of drinking, the DUIs, the high blood pressure he refused to manage because he felt fine? Or the part where his kidneys started failing and he kept missing dialysis appointments because he didn't like how it made him feel?" "He has a disease," Mom snapped. "Addiction is a disease. Kidney failure is a disease. You wouldn't deny him chemo if he had cancer." "Chemo doesn't come out of my body," I said. "And you can't just decide someone else's medical decisions for them, because it makes a nicer story at the dinner table." My grandmother cleared her throat. "In my day," she said shakily, "family didn't think twice about this sort of thing. If your brother needed blood, you rolled up your sleeve. If he needed a kidney, you thanked the Lord you had one to spare. In your day, they also smoked on airplanes and gave kids cough syrup with whiskey." I said before I could stop myself. Eric squeezed my knee under the table, a silent plea, tone it down. I took a breath, tried again. I'm not saying no, I said slowly. I'm saying I haven't decided. I'm saying this is major surgery with risks for me, and I need more than 24 hours and a surprise announcement too. You have always overthought everything, Mom cut in, her lip trembling. When you were 10, you made a chart to decide which Girl Scout troop to join. When you were 20, you made a spreadsheet about your boyfriends. This is why God made you the healthy one, so you could carry the big loads for this family. You think too much. Your brother feels. That's why he struggles. That is not why his kidneys are failing, I snapped. That's because he ignored every doctor for a decade. I made mistakes, Matt said quickly, putting a hand on his chest like a politician owning up to a scandal. I've taken responsibility. I'm sober now. I go to dialysis. I'm doing the work. I just need this one thing from you. One kidney. You have two. You also had two, I said. And you spent them like you spent everything else. There it was, the spark of anger in his eyes, the flash of the brother I grew up with under the soft sick patient act. Wow, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. You hear that? I spent my kidneys. This is what I'm dealing with. Complete lack of compassion. My mother gasped. How can you say that, Amanda? She cried. You of all people, you know what it's like to lose a brother, Grandma, I said, turning to my grandmother before Mom could wind up. Would you have wanted somebody pressuring you in front of everybody like this? Don't drag Nana into this, Mom snapped. She understands duty. You clearly don't. Dad cleared his throat, the way he always did right before he tried to sound reasonable while backing my mother entirely. Look, honey, he said. No one is forcing you. But the doctors said time is of the essence. You heard them. If he doesn't get a transplant in the next year or two, his chances go down. You're our best shot. We thought you'd be happy to do this. Happy? I repeated, voice flat. To undergo major surgery because everyone decided my answer for me? Did the transplant team also mention I'll be out of work for weeks? That I can't lift anything heavy? That I have to avoid certain meds? That statistically donors do fine but they still have elevated risks? Did anybody think about what happens to my body, my life? We'll help with the kids, Mom said. We'll stay with you, cook, clean. You already stay with us more than I can handle, I snapped, then regretted it immediately because her face crumpled and somehow I was the villain again. Wow, Matt muttered. This is who you're defending, Mom. The woman who's willing to let me die because she doesn't want you in her kitchen. That did it. I pushed my chair back so hard it scraped the floor. Okay, I said, standing up. I am not doing this with an audience. My father half rose from his seat. Sit down, Amanda, he said, that old warning in his tone from when I was a kid who dared talk back. I straightened, feeling something inside me go very, very still. No, I said. I'm not going to sit here while you all celebrate a decision I didn't make, and then call me selfish for not smiling about it. Eric stood up too then, to his credit. Maybe we should all cool off, he said. This is clearly a lot. We can talk about it more later. What more is there to talk about? Mom wailed. She's the match. God gave us a miracle and she wants to negotiate it like a car loan. Speaking of car loans, I said before I could stop myself, maybe we should also talk about the time Matt used my social security number to get a zero-down SUV and then defaulted, but I guess we'll do that after dessert. The room went dead silent. Matt's face flickered just for a second. Dad's head snapped toward him. What? He barked. Matt glared at me. Real classy, he said. Dragging up old mistakes when I'm literally fighting for my life. That was 5 years ago, I said. My credit is still recovering. You never paid a cent. We're not talking about that, Mom said sharply. You said you forgave him. I said the bank wouldn't press charges, I corrected. That's not the same thing. Eric's hand was on my arm now, gently steering. Let's go, he murmured. Kids, grab your coats. Lily looked like she wanted to disappear. Jake's jaw was set in that stubborn way he gets when he's trying not to cry. We're leaving, I said. We can discuss my internal organs when you've all remembered I'm a person, not a spare parts closet. Mom stood up so fast her chair toppled. If you walk out that door without giving your brother an answer, she said, voice low and shaking, I will never forgive you, and neither will he. And one day when he's gone, you will have to live with the fact that you killed him. Something inside me, something small and frightened that had lived there since childhood, started to say apologize. Back down. Take it back. But another part, the part that had sat in doctors' offices alone after my second miscarriage, the part that had gotten up for every 3 a.m. feeding when Eric was traveling, the part that had quietly paid off Matt's secret debts so our parents wouldn't lose their house, spoke louder. No, I said. If he dies, it will be because disease and his own choices caught up with him. Not because I refused to let you strap a moral bomb vest to my body and push the button in public. Then I took my kids and my husband and I walked out. To understand why that dinner hit me like someone flipping the table of my entire life, you need to know what it was like growing up in my family. I'm 3 years older than Matt. Our parents had me young and broke. My arrival meant my dad taking every overtime shift he could at the factory, and my mom quitting her receptionist job to stay home. For a few years, that turned into 15. When I was little, we were a team. Mom and I did couponing and laundry, Dad and I built blanket forts. Then Matt was born, premature and wailing, and overnight the whole household reorganized itself around his needs. He's fragile, Mom would say when she took the last popsicle from my hand to give to him. He needs extra love, she'd murmur when she tucked him into my bed after he had a nightmare, leaving me to crawl into the drafty top bunk. He just feels things more. She'd sigh when he threw tantrums that went on for an hour, while mine got squashed with a single sharp look. I learned very early that there were 2 categories of behavior in our house: Matt's and everyone else's. When Matt forgot his homework, the teacher was too strict. When I forgot mine, I was lazy. When Matt got in a fight at school, the other boy must have provoked him. When I snapped back at a bully, I was unladylike and mouthy. By the time we were teenagers, our roles were cemented. I was the responsible one, the one who got straight A's, held down a part-time job, watched Matt after school. He was the charming disaster who could talk his way out of anything. Teachers loved him. Coaches loved him. Girls loved him. My parents adored him in that exasperated, indulgent way that said, he's a handful but he's ours, while I was the steady background music. When he crashed the family car at 17 because he was texting while driving, my dad yelled for about 5 minutes and then spent the rest of the night comforting him about how everyone makes mistakes. When I missed curfew by 15 minutes once because my ride had a flat tire, I got grounded for 2 weeks and lectured about responsibility. We're harder on you because you can handle it, Mom said when I called her out. Your brother, he's different. He needs gentler handling. Gentler handling translated into a lifetime of lowered expectations. When Matt barely graduated high school, they threw a party and called it a miracle. When I got into a state college on a scholarship, they worried I was getting too ambitious. Don't forget where you came from, Dad said. Don't go so far you can't come back. That line takes on a whole different flavor when you fast forward 20 years and realize maybe, just maybe, they meant it literally. Matt floated from job to job in his 20s. Retail, construction, bartending. He moved back home twice when money ran out. My parents always made room, always framed it as helping him get on his feet. When I moved back home for 6 months after my divorce to get on my feet with 2 kids in tow, Mom sighed every time she passed my boxes in the hallway and said, I never thought my life would look like this at 55. The drinking started in his 20s and got ugly in his 30s. DUIs, bar fights, missed shifts. He's self-medicating his anxiety, Mom said. If he could just get good insurance, good therapy. I suggested rehab, boundaries, tough love. I was branded cold and judgmental more than once for daring to say maybe buying your adult son a truck after his second DUI wasn't helping. When my father's blood pressure started creeping up in his 50s, he changed his diet, took his meds, did what his doctor told him. When Matt's blood pressure spiked in his late 30s, he took the pills for a few weeks and then stopped. They make me feel weird, he complained. I'm too young to be on all this crap. The first time he landed in the ER with swollen ankles and sky-high creatinine, the doctor said the words kidney damage and end-stage renal disease, and my parents treated it like he'd been mugged by a stranger. This came out of nowhere, Mom told everyone at church. He's so young. It's not fair. By then I had my own life 2 hours away, a husband, 2 kids, a full-time job as a school counselor. I was the one who drove in on weekends to sit in the hospital while Mom ran home to shower, the one who made lists of questions for the nephrologist, the one who listened when the transplant team said, "He will need a kidney eventually." Family members can be tested when the time comes, but there is no obligation. We stress that. I heard that last part very clearly. My mother apparently did not. "You're his sister," she said on the phone later, as if that sealed it. "Of course you'll be tested. Of course you'll donate. I would give him both my kidneys if I could. You also have high blood pressure and diabetes," I reminded her. "You're not a candidate. And I haven't said I wouldn't donate. I said I need to know more." "You always need to know more," she said, exasperated. "Sometimes you just do the right thing and trust God." I did get tested months later when the doctor said his numbers were getting worse. Not because of my mother's guilt trip, but because I genuinely wanted to know if I could help, and I knew if I never found out I would spend the rest of my life wondering. The evaluation process was intense. Blood work, urine tests, imaging, meetings with a transplant nephrologist, a surgeon, a social worker. They asked me about my health, my job, my mental state. They asked if I felt pressured. I lied the first time. "No, my family is supportive either way," I said, because my mother was in the waiting room and I could feel her expectations through the wall. The second time, when it was just me and the social worker, I told a sliver more truth. "They really want this," I said. "My parents especially. They make comments. But I know it's my choice. We can help you if you need an excuse," the social worker said gently. "Sometimes it's easier for families to accept the doctor said no than I don't want to. We can be the bad guys if necessary." "I don't know what I want yet," I admitted. "I need to talk to my husband, think about my kids, my job, the risks. I don't trust myself to make a decision this big in the middle of all their drama." She nodded. "That's healthy," she said. "You don't have to decide today. Or at all. Fear a match will tell you. Then you can sit with it, talk with your support system. The important thing is that you understand this is voluntary. We don't want donors who feel coerced. That's not ethical or safe." Fast forward to the phone call the day before that infamous dinner. The transplant coordinator sounded almost cheerful. "Good news," she said. "You're a compatible match. Not perfect, but well within acceptable range. If you decide to move forward, you'd be a suitable donor." My stomach flipped. "If I decide," I repeated. "Right. I just need you to say those words again for me." She chuckled. "If," she said. "You're under no obligation. Take your time. Talk to your husband. If you want, we can schedule another session with our counselor to go over risks and benefits. And remember, if at any point you decide not to proceed, you can change your mind. Even up to the day of surgery. You can also choose to have us tell your family you're not a candidate without giving them details." "You can do that?" I asked. "You'd lie for me?" "We'd preserve your privacy," she corrected. "We'd simply say you're unable to donate for medical reasons," which is true in a sense. Emotional readiness is a medical reason. I didn't decide on that call. I told her I needed time. She told me to take it. 24 hours later, I was being toasted as a hero over my mother's lasagna. After we left that night, things escalated fast. Mom called me 3 times before we even got home, leaving voicemails that swung from sobbing to furious. "How could you embarrass your brother like that in front of the whole family?" one of them said. "You made him look like a fool." Do you know what stress does to his blood pressure? Another, I didn't raise you to be so cruel, Amanda. I don't even recognize you anymore. She texted Eric separately a whole screen of messages about how I needed help, how I was having one of my episodes, how he needed to step up as the man of the house and talk some sense into me. He showed me to his credit. This is a lot, he said quietly, flipping through the texts on the couch. Has she always been like this? Yes, I said. You just haven't been the target before. He stared at the screen, brow furrowed. I thought she was just intense, he admitted. I didn't realize how much she rewrites things until today. The kids were quiet that night. At bedtime, Lily asked in a small voice, Are you going to let Uncle Matt die? I had to sit down on the edge of her bed because her words felt like a punch. Where did you hear that? I asked gently. Grandma, she said. She told Aunt Carol in the kitchen that if you stayed stubborn, we'd all be planning a funeral instead of a surgery. Rage flared so bright behind my eyes I saw stars. Come here, I said, pulling her into my lap. No one person has that much power. Uncle Matt is sick because of a lot of things, including his own choices. Doctors are working to help him. Other people can be donors. There's a list. There are options. But you're the match, she said. That's special. It is, I said. And if I decide to donate, it will be because I feel very sure it's the right thing for me, not because anyone guilt me. Do you understand? She nodded slowly. Grandma said good mothers always put themselves last, she whispered. That if you loved us, you'd do whatever it takes to keep our family together. I closed my eyes for a second. Good mothers take care of themselves so they can be here for their kids, I said firmly. Sometimes that means saying no to things that could hurt them. Sometimes it means saying yes. This is complicated, but my love for you is not. That's not on the table. Jake was easier. Do what you want, Mom, he said, trying to sound nonchalant. If you die on an operating table for a dude who used your info for a car and never said sorry, I'll be pissed. Language, I said out of habit. He shrugged. Still true, he said. I lay awake most of that night, staring at the ceiling, weighing risks, responsibilities, possible futures. If I donated and everything went perfectly, would it heal this gaping wound or just give my parents more ammunition forever? If I didn't donate and Matt died, would I ever sleep again? Around 3 a.m, I got up, went to the kitchen, and pulled out the folder where I'd stuffed paperwork from the transplant center. The consent forms, the information packet, the notes I'd taken during the counseling session. One line kept jumping out at me. Donors must be free of coercion and feel emotionally ready. I thought about my mother's face at the table, my father's hand on my shoulder, Matt's smug toast. I thought about the SUV loan, the times he'd borrowed money and never paid it back, the way my parents always framed his messes as tragedies and mine as moral failings. And I realized something that made my hands shake. I did not trust my brother. Not with my credit, not with my parents, and not with my health. If I gave him a kidney, I would be tying my body and psyche to his for the rest of my life. Every time he skipped a checkup or blew off a doctor's advice, it would be my organ on the line. Every time he made another bad decision, my mother would say, "After everything your sister did," as if my sacrifice justified his carelessness. And if something went wrong during or after the surgery for me, I knew, as surely as I knew my own name, that my mother would still somehow make it my fault. In the morning, I called the transplant coordinator back. "I've thought about it," I said, voice shaking, "and I'm not going to move forward as a donor." She didn't sound surprised. "Okay," she said calmly. "That's absolutely your right. Thank you for letting us know. My family is going to be upset," I added weakly. "We can tell them you're medically ineligible," she said. "That's our standard phrasing. We won't give details." "Will that be true?" I asked. "You are not emotionally ready," she said. "That is a valid medical reason. You're also dealing with significant family pressure. That makes you a poor candidate from a psychosocial standpoint. We don't want donors who feel like they're being pushed into it." I exhaled, shaky. Okay, I said. Please tell them that. That I'm not a candidate. We will, she said. And if you want support, our social worker can talk to you about setting boundaries. I hung up and immediately texted my parents. Just spoke to transplant team. I wrote, I am not eligible to be a donor. Please direct any medical questions to them. It took less than 10 minutes for my phone to start buzzing. First Mom, then Dad, then Matt. Mom. What do you mean not eligible? Dad. Call us. We need to discuss. Matt. Are you serious right now? After everything. I didn't respond. I knew any explanation would just be ammunition. An hour later, Mom called from the hospital. She didn't bother with hello. They said you're not a candidate, she said, voice ice cold. They wouldn't tell us why. What did you do? I exercised my right to bodily autonomy, I said. That's not a crime. Did you lie on the questionnaire? She demanded. Did you drink more than you told them? Take drugs? Is there something wrong with you we don't know about? The irony almost made me choke. There is nothing medically wrong with me, I said. I'm fine. I just decided not to go through major surgery for a man who has never taken responsibility for anything. How dare you, she hissed. Your brother is devastated. As if on cue, another call came through, Matt on the other line. I declined it. He'll have to process that with his therapist, his doctor, his higher power, I said. Not with me. I'm not a kidney vending machine that just malfunctioned. You are a selfish girl, she spat. After all we've done for you. I laughed because if I didn't, I was going to cry. You raised me, I said. That's not a favor I owe you organs for. That's your job as parents. You'll regret this, she said and hung up. The smear campaign started immediately. Within days, I was getting side-eye emojis from cousins, cryptic Facebook posts about some people only being there in good times, and actual messages from church acquaintances of my parents. Heard you weren't a match after all, one woman wrote. God must be testing your faith, praying he softens your heart. My heart is fine, I replied, then blocked her. What my family didn't know was that the test God seemed to be sending me arrived in the form of a brown envelope in my mailbox a week later. It was from a debt collection agency I'd never heard of, addressed to me. Inside was a notice about an unpaid personal loan at a bank in my hometown, taken out 18 months earlier. Loan amount, $12,000. Past due balance, $13,500 with fees. Cosigner my name. Primary borrower Matthew Pierce. My brother. I stared at the paper, my vision tunneling. I had not co-signed any such loan. I hadn't even set foot in that bank in years. When I called the number on the notice, the woman on the other end was polite but firm. We have your signature on file, ma'am, she said. Dated May 12th of last year. If you believe it's fraudulent, you'll need to file a report. I drove down there the next day, took time off work, sat in a cramped office while a loan officer pulled up scanned copies of the application. There it was, my name, my social security number, my address from before we moved, and a shaky version of my signature that sort of looked like mine if you squinted and didn't know I hadn't used my maiden name in 10 years. He said you'd agreed to help him consolidate some credit card debt, the loan officer said, clearly uncomfortable. His parents came with him. They vouched for you. My parents. I repeated, feeling like the floor had dropped away. They knew about this? They were here, he said. They signed as references. I remember because your mom cried. Of course she did. She can cry on command. I filed a fraud report. I called a lawyer. I sat in my car and screamed into the steering wheel until my throat hurt. Then I drove to my parents' house. They weren't expecting me. Mom opened the door in her bathrobe, eyes puffy from what looked like actual crying this time. What are you doing here? She demanded. We're getting ready to take your brother to dialysis. This won't take long, I said, pushing past her into the living room. Matt was on the couch watching TV, a blanket over his legs like some tragic Victorian orphan. Dad sat in his recliner next to him, flipping through a magazine. They both looked up, surprise flickering across their faces. I got a letter from a collections agency, I said without preamble, about a loan I supposedly co-signed for Matt. Dad's jaw clenched. Mom wrung her hands. Matt rolled his eyes. Oh, come on, he said. You already said you forgave me for that. Forgave you? I repeated. I didn't even know about it. I slapped the notice down on the coffee table. You forged my signature. He shrugged like I'd accused him of borrowing a shirt without asking. It was just paperwork, he said. The bank needed a cosigner. You make good money. I was going to pay it back, but then I got sick. You were already in kidney failure when you took this out, I said. You were already missing work, already behind on bills. You knew you couldn't pay it back. It was for medical expenses, Mom cut in. You know how expensive medications are. It was for credit cards, I snapped. The bank told me. And you were there. You vouched for him. Dad finally spoke. He's our son, he said. He needed help. Family helps family. By committing fraud? I asked. By putting my financial future at risk without my knowledge? Don't be dramatic, Mom snapped. We were going to tell you if it became a problem. It is a problem, I said, my voice shaking. It's a legal problem. It's identity theft. Do you understand that I could press charges? That he could go to jail? You wouldn't do that, Mom breathed, horrified. You're not cruel. You're right, I said. If I was, I'd let the DA handle this and walk away. Instead, I'm going to give you one chance to fix it. Pay off this loan in full within 60 days in writing from your own funds, not mine. Or I go forward with the fraud complaint. And I send the bank every text and voicemail where you admit he used my info without my consent. Dad sputtered. We don't have that kind of money, he said. We'd have to take it out of the house. Our retirement. Then maybe you shouldn't have gambled with my financial life behind my back, I said. And maybe now you see why I don't trust this family with my internal organs. My brother snorted. There it is, he said. This is all about the kidney. You're just looking for excuses to make me the bad guy so you can sleep at night. I turned to him, feeling strangely calm. I don't need excuses, I said. You forgave yourself for drunk driving by calling it a wake-up call. You forgave yourself for cheating on your ex by saying she wasn't meeting your needs. You forgave yourself for taking out a car loan in my name because you were going to pay it back. You will find a way to forgive yourself for forging my signature too. You always do. My conscience is clear. I am choosing not to let you endanger my kids' lives by tanking our financial stability any more than you already have. And I am choosing not to tie my physical health to yours any tighter than genetics already did. Mom burst into tears again. How did I raise such a hard-hearted daughter? She wailed. You used to be so sweet. You'd give the last cookie to your brother. Maybe if you hadn't taught me that my only value was in how much I gave him, I said, I wouldn't have taken so long to realize I'm allowed to stop. Dad stood up, looming. You're not welcome in this house if all you're going to do is stir up trouble, he said. Your brother is sick. We're under enough stress. You're right, I said, picking up my bag. You're under a lot of stress. Try imagining how it feels to be asked to risk your life for people who would sign your name to a loan without blinking. I walked to the door. Mom followed, sobbing. If you walk out now, she said, don't come back when he's in the ground. Don't you dare show your face at his funeral. I paused, hand on the doorknob. If he dies, I said quietly, I will bury my brother. I will grieve the kid I shared a bunk bed with, the teenager I watched climb out his window, the broken man who never learned to tell himself no because you never did. But I won't bury myself with him. After that, there wasn't much left to salvage. My parents scraped together the money, I suspect with help from my grandmother and a second mortgage, and paid off the fraudulent loan to avoid legal trouble. The bank closed the account. The DA, faced with a victim unwilling to press for jail time, let it drop. The transplant center moved on. Matt stayed on the waiting list. A year later, he got a kidney from a deceased donor. He's doing okay from what I hear. He's back to posting inspirational quotes about second chances on Facebook, interspersed with thinly veiled jabs about family who turned their back when it mattered. My parents share those posts religiously. They also make sure everyone knows their version of events, that I refused to help, that I chose money over blood, that I abandoned them in their time of need. Some extended relatives bought it. Some didn't. A few reached out to me privately saying things like, "I see both sides," which is code for, "I don't want to get involved." Jason, my cousin Jason, not to be confused with any other, sent me a simple text. "Proud of you for not giving in." That meant more than any long speech. My marriage survived, partly because Eric finally saw the manipulation up close and was horrified enough to start backing me instead of trying to keep everyone happy. Our kids are in therapy, processing the fact that their grandparents tried to use them as emotional leverage in an organ donation campaign. I've gone low contact. I answer texts about major health updates. I send cards on holidays. I do not attend dinners, interventions, or guilt trips disguised as prayer meetings. I have not been to their house since the day I confronted them about the loan. Sometimes I lie awake at night and wonder if I did the right thing. I picture my brother on that hospital bed, tubes in his arms, my parents hunched in plastic chairs, and I feel like a monster for saying no to anything that might have helped. Then I picture my kids, my own body on an operating table, my mother in the waiting room telling anyone who will listen that I owed him this, and I feel that cold, clear line again, the line between generosity and sacrifice, between helping and being harvested. So that's my story. I didn't donate my kidney to my brother. I exposed the loan he took out in my name instead. I let myself be the villain in my parents' version of events to stop being the victim in mine. Now I'm sitting here asking a bunch of strangers, if you were in my shoes, if your brother announced to the entire family that you were giving him a kidney without actually asking you, if your parents backed him up and tried to guilt you into major surgery, and then you found out he'd been secretly taking out loans in your name and your parents helped him do it, would you have given him the kidney anyway to keep the peace, or would you have drawn the line like I did and risked being the one everyone whispers about at holiday dinners for the rest of your life?